Well, hello, and how are you? I hope everything's going your way, but I always hope that, but I really hope that you make it go that way if it ain't. When you look at your flaws and you see your weaknesses and you think this is unbearable weight, you think that this is difficult, and rightly so, it can be. But I want you to do something that's going to be like a baby step. It's going to be a really small step. I want you to look at those weaknesses, and after living with them for a long time, you should know them a little bit. And I want you to find, it may be as small as a grain of sand when you start, what you find. I want you to find the strength in the weakness. I want you to find the fire in the darkness. I want you to find a way to turn lemons into lemonade. And I believe you can do this if you believe that you can. You got to believe that you can. And I think that it might even be so unnoticeable at first. You don't even believe anything happened. But it always starts with that first step. And that means that you just got to get started and keep going. You don't have to run like Sonic the damn Hedgehog to the finish line. You just got to keep going. And there's always a silver lining. No matter how dark it gets, you can always find a way to make things go your way. No matter what the obstacle, no matter how unobtainable the goal, there is always a light in the dark. So whenever you look at your weaknesses and you feel your weaknesses come to visit, they come to bind you and oppress you, do your little knee-jerk reaction if you got to. I do it all the time. But then look for the leverage point. Look for the strength in the weakness. Find a way to turn what is bad into good. It's an art to flipping a table. There's an art to storming into a marketplace in front of a temple and clearing it out. There's an art and there's a technique. And that means there's a skill to be gained and learned and mastered. And in earthly standards, these things do take time. But it's going to take a hell of a lot longer if you don't get started. And so, when you come face to face with your flaws and they're expressing through you, and it feels like a hostage situation as they are manifesting and dragging you along for the ride, realize you are the one being dragged along, and thus you are the one that can ultimately see how to turn what is bad into good. You can find that silver lining if you just look. See a silver lining on a cloud. You have to look at that cloud. You can't run from it. You can't turn away from it. You can't flinch up and lock up. You gotta look at it. You've got to be aware of it. You've got to know it. And then And then you can find and see the silver lining. There is something inside of our weaknesses that wants to betray the weakness and wants to join on our side. It's just like when in the Bible, when the Israelites, they were going to raid the city, and the prostitute betrayed the city, and thus the Israelites could conquer the city inside the their idea of the promised land. It's just like that. And inside of every weakness is a betrayer that wants to tell it and wants to give you access to that weakness so that you can conquer it and overcome it, dominate it and master it, and thus turn the weakness into strength. You can find it. You can find a way to make it positive. Look at it like this. When we are held bound and down by our weaknesses, our flaws, our imperfections, it is an opportunity, one, for growth, and it is an opportunity to become the alchemist. An alchemist is an ancient form of chemist, right? And there are still people who practice alchemy, of course, but it's more thought of in this way as pre-chemist, alchemist. They were trying to refine, like they'd put like lead, like a worthless metal, through a series of processes trying to turn it into gold. Turn the worthless into something priceless and valuable. That is the exoteric interpretation of an alchemist. But everyone knows that the exoteric one, in a lot of ways, it becomes like lead. And the esoteric, or the inside alchemist takes those skills and a little bit of imagination. They step into that room of the mind, and that is where their laboratory is found. The body is a laboratory. The mind becomes their workbench, and where all the equipment is and everything, where their drawing board is to write the notes on. And they, being neither the laboratory or the workbench, they are the one that is the alchemist. Every time your flaws come to surface, every time your weaknesses and imperfections, it is a chance to practice alchemy. It is a chance. All forms of wisdom are painful to acquire. Doesn't matter if you're a car mechanic, doesn't matter if you're a construction worker, doesn't matter if you're an office worker, doesn't matter if you're a fast food employee, doesn't matter. All forms of wisdom, knowledge, and thus knowing are painful to acquire. That pain don't last forever, and we damn sure don't got to suffer it. You can do it, believe. So, now I'm going to get to the topic at hand. Today, I'm going to try to talk a little bit about chakras. But if you study these things, you begin to realize it's a lot of stuff to know and learn, and it's very hard to condense into simplicity all of the time. So we're gonna just have fun. All right, so I have illustrated this, okay? Now here you are. You got a root that's red. You've got a sacral that's orange. You got a solar plexus that's yellow. You got a heart that's green. You got a throat that's blue. You got a third eye, that's your purple or indigo. Most people color it as purple, but it's really indigo, but purple can be acceptable. We know what it means. And that's white, but white won't show up there, so I kind of hit it with some gold, but it's usually silver or white or something like that. There's a little range there of it. And that is your crown. It's your divine link back to source. So if you think of this guy as a battery, I'll just do this. I think of it as a AA battery. Okay? So we got source coming down and to the ground, and then it reconnects just like a circuit. Okay, so root is symbolized by earth, sacral is symbolized by water, solar plexus is symbolized by fire, heart is symbolized by air, throat is symbolized by blue, or spirit. There's three. Okay, so this is our horizon. I'm going to explain it how I understand it now. There's a few different ways. The heart is like a horizon, okay? Down here is the domain of the lower self. Not that the lower self is necessarily bad, but if they're out of balance, bad things. Like you get obsessed about worldly things, about earthly things, like wealth acquisition, like hunger, like needs, all kinds of things. But these are kind of important. And then up here you would have like the higher self, right? These are your spirit ones, and they're not actually they're not represented by physical elements. Heart is air, because air, kind of where the mixture begins of something that's physical. You can feel the wind blow on you, and it's merged with energy. So in this domain of the higher, we have the spirit or the energetic realm. Now they all, of course, they're connected to the same thing. It's intermeshed, okay? All right, so we start spirit 1, spirit 2, and spirit 3, okay? So there you go. There's you a little bit of understanding there, what we're about to look at. Here's my cluster fuckery of a artistic masterpiece. So we start down here. We've got the earth. We've got, thus is the root chakra. Thus is the color red. Okay? Then we come up here. And I'm going to explain one more thing. Well, I've got this before that. Sorry. So you understand why water isn't blue and it's orange. So you understand this. Okay? Because this, if you look up like colorology, it's the science and the study of color, you'll find out each of these have a frequency. This is a lower or slower moving frequency. Matter is slower moving energy, and that's why it can condense together and form shapes, forms, objects, and thus matter. And so we go from slow or low frequencies, and it gets faster and faster and faster. Okay, so with that understanding, we can understand why water isn't blue, even though technically water is transparent and clear. So it's just whatever color is reflected in it, right? So we got earth. Our root chakra are red. All right, this is how it all intertwines exoterically or in the world. And when it's said that we are the universe, it's way beyond this. I didn't draw planets, okay? I got a piece of paper in like third grade art skills, okay? So when you hear we're the universe, we're everything, all that is, this is one way of looking at a very large idea. It's not the whole idea. It's an infinite idea, okay? But we're trying to talk about it, so we can't rattle on for 5 hours. We can't rattle on infinitely describing every aspect here. We're doing things simple. I like simplicity. So earth, root chakra, color red, low frequency, and they all have set frequencies or a range of frequency. I just didn't care to Google it. You can Google that at your discretion. So we got red down here, and it symbolizes the ground or the earth. So then we've got water. All right, that symbolizes a cloud, little raindrops going on, the color orange. That's your sacral chakra.
the color orange. It has a frequency, again, of course, of its own. And its element is water, sacral orange, and it rains down on the ground. And the ground has nutrients and seeds and everything in it. And we rain down, and then what's inside the ground, once some water hits it, they mix together, and then we've got the next one, what sprouts up. You could have a sunflower, you could have vegetables, flowers, whatever. I did a tree. And so we grow up here, and we hit our air and our heart and our green, symbolized in this kind of symbolism as the canopy of trees, because the earth is technically red. So we can't say the earth isn't in this way. Some people do, and that's how they understand it. That's okay. There are many ways, paths, and creeks, rivers to the same ocean. It is okay to have a little bit of difference. This is just how I do it because, it makes sense to me. So we got our air, our heart, our green. And you can think of like wind blowing through the canopy, vibrating up the storm and everything. But the canopy symbolizes green. Okay, then we've got our spirit one, our throat, our expression is in blue. And the blue, as you can tell, runs everywhere because it's not actually the color, it's what it symbolizes. But we can think of it in terms of color. It helps us to visualize better and whatnot, all right? And something about like white light, like what the sunlight casts off, even though I did yellow, right? But it has all the colors in it. So these colors do exist, and light is but photons or energy, ultimately. So breath, spirit is the same as energy, and everything's energy, and all the colors come from the energy. So all these colors are actually apparent. That's why when it's dark, if there was no light, everything would be black. The colors the light reveals the colors because the colors are in the light. That's trippy as hell, ain't it, guys? And so we got our first spirit chakra, our throat chakra. It represents our expression, like how we write, how we communicate, how we talk, our body language maybe, communication, expression. And it is blue, and it is entrenched because it's easiest to say spirit starts here, and color is that, and it's all in there. Now, we get to our second spirit chakra, our third eye, our ajna. It's represented by indigo, but I did purple because a lot of people know it as purple, but whatever, technicalities. It's our intuition. Now, to simplify that can be a big thing, but I'm going to simplify it. That is our awareness to know it is all interlaced. And he's just an example, but he should exist in there too. So this one is our intuition, our awareness, our knowing, all those things that enables us to see inside of the mind, so to speak. It is our awareness and knowing that it is all interlaced and interconnected. And then our third one is considered the perfect one, the crown chakra. Its color is white, even though I did gray because duh. And it connects back to source, God, source, divine, what have you. And I'm going to go over these now that I've explained. They're all interlaced ultimately, and then our perception to realize that they are, and how deep it is, and how, because we exist inside of it all, and we are it all, and it is it all, it's whatever. So we are all connected to it, and it's all connected to us. So one thing, I am everything, you are everything, we are each other and everything. So this one symbolizes like really, really our security and stability in the form of it's a lot about grounding, right? Because Earth is grounding. And it's about like, do I have enough money? I don't feel like I have enough money. I'm hungry. I don't feel like I have enough food. My God, my material existence, it determines my experience here. That's an out of balance one, by the way. And it manifests different ways, but this is a simple video. And that's really where that stuff would come from and be associated with. This one's our emotional energy. Okay, our creative energy starts around in here. That would be around your pelvis, your groin, and also our sexual energy. All right, and that kind of energy right there. Ultimately, all energy is the same, but it's something about different locations amp it up. There's more of it, all kinds of things. It has to do with your filters, and your chakras are your filters in a large way. So that right there does that. That's our emotional energy. That's our emotional energy, our sexual energy, our creative energy. Right. Here's our fire, our solar plexus, and our yellow. I don't think I hit that one last time, but there it is now. That is around our stomach. You can see the energy and the energy waves coming off, and there's energy in that. Little photons and things from the literal sun. That right there is like our desire to get shit done. All right, we gotta get her done. Rednecks with chakras, imagine that. We get her done. All right, so anyway, that's an old one. I'm showing my age now. Here, but that is the fire in our belly, so to speak. All right, and so then we get to our heart. And if you think about it, a canopy is like what has been produced ultimately over all of this. And things stored inside of all of this, when combined, produce. They produce like fruit and leaves and all kinds of stuff. What is in our heart is a culmination of what is in our body, our experiences, things of that nature. And that's why there can be evil in a heart. There can be good in a heart. There can be a mixture. There can be, there can be just, good experiences, bad experiences, all kinds of things like that. And so then we get up here. We do the internal work and our heart improves and all kinds of things. So we get up here. This, our throat, our blue one, dictates like our communication and expression. And this one, like I said, our awareness of it all. Psychic powers kind of really begin here. Energetic sensitivities kind of begin there. And it starts to up our whole system. All kinds of things. Oh, this is a big topic. I'm trying not to go off the wilderness. And everything ultimately, when our crown opens, our divine link to God, it is restored and opened, and thus. I'm gonna frame this and hang it on the refrigerator like a third grader. Might even put some macaroni around the sun. Anyway, so see you later, Chocolate Jim. So that is the idea of chakras, and a lot of this can be, like I said, this is all symbolic of our chakric system. So it all is interconnected, and it all is important. You want to take care of your body, but some people are more naturally. I believe that there was a theory and an idea. Psychics said they could confirm it, but they realized around the beginning of the 90s that children, or late 80s, may be wrong, the date's not important, but at some point, as frequency started to increase, things were happening. More and more children were being born with like indigo auras or blue auras at the least. And that, I don't want to list off group names here, okay, but go indigo children, right? I'll leave it at that. And so as people kept on, as frequencies of human beings on average kept increasing, because in this place, like, nothing happens without affecting something else. It's like they did an experiment. Well, quantum physicists love to reference this experiment, and it's cool. It's cool. They had a group of monkeys on one island and another group on a completely different island, and they, no interaction, of course. Well, this group of monkeys learned something, and as soon as they learned it, it was like right after that, that group of monkeys learned how to do it. and it was vice versa. And on an energetic or quantum level, very small level in terms of what we can see with our physical eyes, it speaks volumes that there's a flow that is never interrupted around us. That is our spirit, a consciousness, a field, a stream, however you want to visualize it. It's data and information, because energy has this incredible capability, and they use it in computers, in car computers, in smartphones, in home appliances now. I'd get the stupid appliances. Don't get the smart one. Junk. But in the computer aspect, energy through circuitry and wiring and some ingenuity can store memory, information, and data. Computers speak in 01001, but it represents things. It's a really fascinating thing. Read about binary and how it relates to how we communicate and stuff. It's computer language. And essentially, energy can store information and data, so you can communicate with it. It can communicate with you. That's how I'm able to make this video. It's going in the computer. It's relaying to you. I'm communicating to you. And you talk on the phone. Energy traverses, and at the other end of the phone, people can hear it. Right? That's the basic idea. And so all this is made possible because energy ultimately can relay information, because it can hold it or store it or whatever. Memory. That's what memory is actually about in electrical and computer terminology. So I forgot what I was going to say. I think I made my points, though. Yeah, let's hope so. So when you yeah, that's really all I had to say today. It's gone. The connection is severed. Oh, when things happen, there's a connection. Shut up before you ruin it, Kurt. Here, shut up before they hang up. So there's a flow. So there's a flow going all through us and all around us, and it affects us on a very, 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 very small level. And thus, fields of consciousness. That's what that actually means. And we can channel these fields. There's fields for everything. If the field has been prepped, if you are ready for that field to sprout what's inside of it, you to receive it, you tap into these consciousnesses, okay? Like, you hear about, like, someone's playing guitar, right? And they're like, people are always telling you, even though they don't understand it to this degree, I'm sure, they're telling you, you should listen to so-and-so and get influenced by them. And people, famous musicians, a lot of them go, I was really into, like, Eric Clapton, or I was really into, like, Metallica, or Avenged Sevenfold, or Chuck Berry, or a B.B. King, or whoever it may be. And they influenced me a great deal. By doing that, in a lot of ways, you're connecting to what they connected to. And you're able to channel that through your expression. Because people who are being creative, there's not a left brain approach to most of creativity, right? It's just kind of flowing. Energy is flowing. And so you read books, you get influenced, you study about somebody, you try to learn about them, and you'll be able to tap into the same consciousnesses that they were. Now, that doesn't mean you'll express like they did, because our energetic filters, our chakras, are all a little bit different. There is a matter component to these things, of course, and
Everything got a little bit of uniqueness at the same time. That's why people don't. That's why even when people are heavily influenced by somebody in anything they might be doing, it's not a complete copy, right? It's not just the same thing over and over again. There's some uniqueness to it. And thus progress is made ultimately across that field. Or, yeah, I think that summed it up. So, yeah, just, this here, fight the good fight, do the good work. It turns out you don't actually have to do something big and flashy, guys. You just have to study something, go do it, get a little bit of experience at it, do that internal work, increase your vibration, and you'll contribute to the good work. When I first started, like, spirituality, I wanted to be like an exorcist, right? Not a Catholic one, but I didn't necessarily want to fight like demonic forces, negative energy. I was just curious as hell what lied beyond what I knew. Senses don't tell you the whole story, turns out. You can tune them to the frequencies and you can use them. But I have had some spiritual experiences, and I have had some negative influences that I had to learn how to deal with. I do pretty good at that. Just last night I had an experience, and I should have taken a picture. Right before I went to bed, around 2:22 a.m., and I had a feeling, I had an energy surge, and that usually means in the dark there is a visitor of some kind, and so if it's not causing no trouble, probably just leave it alone, right? Like, what is trouble? Like, I can't sleep at night, I'm sick, I'm doing all these things, I'm having all these negative thoughts, all this is out of nowhere for no reason. You might want to do something about that. It's not always spiritual, but it can be. So last night I get ready, I'm meditating in my bed, and I got my crystal on my third eye, and I got my peacock oars in my hands, just hanging out, practicing, feeling their energy and everything. And I okay, I'm tired now, I need to go to bed, so I need to put the crystals up. Okay, so I turned my flashlight on my phone on, and it shined directly at the ceiling, and I didn't know scorpions could do this. There was a black scorpion, a little black Alabama scorpion. They're called devil scorpions, turns out. And it was right directly above my bed with its stinger up. And sometimes these energy surges are spiritual helpers trying to tell you about something or show you something, spirit guides, so to speak, guardian angels, whatever you want to refer to them as and see them as. And so I get up, and when I find a scorpion, I don't typically kill the bugs. I capture them and I put them outside. There's no thought to that. It's just this, I don't want to just go around killing everything that, oh my God, it's in my house. Well, I'm sure it didn't know it wasn't supposed to be there. And I don't really find bugs that attractive looking. Some of them are cool looking, but I'm not a pro bug person. So I do it just because it feels like I should do that. So, back to the point, I realized last night there was a scorpion directly above my bed on the ceiling, and the clock read 2:22. And so after I get the scorpion dealt with, I come back and I look it up, and it symbolizes, ultimately, 2 is like a number of balance, right? It depends on the numerology school, of course, but because some things vary, and that's okay. It's all based on belief and what we understand, and attachments and association and such.
But 2 typically means balance. So 222, it's a lot about balance and harmonizing and transformation in a lot of ways, changing. And there's a scorpion on the ceiling, a devil scorpion, with his stinger up. At that moment, I woke up to witness that time and that scorpion. I didn't wake up. I was getting ready to go to sleep. And so it basically symbolizes a dark transformation. Now, it doesn't mean somebody's going to become like the devil and things like that. No, in spirituality, words don't always mean, don't always, it's an understatement. They don't always mean what they say at face value. It can mean you're about to have a really bad transformation. When those angel numbers, as we call them, they say things like, remain positive until you've learned some balance and you've gotten a little bit better at just being with your feelings. That means God's about to hit you in the head with a baseball bat. It's that remain positive. This is for your own good. In a hostage situation, it feels like sometimes. Then you the hostage. Remain positive. I'm about to hit you really hard. We're going to get you ready. And so what's a dark transformation? Like dark night of the soul or something of that nature. Something like that at least. And you just, you ain't got no choice. You here. Speaking of bugs, you live in the middle of the forest. You know, bugs are inevitable here. You ain't got no choice. You're here. What you gonna do? Resist? You can. Do you want to? Do you? Let me put it this way. What resistance is, once you can tell the difference between no resistance and resistance. Resistance is like being constipated, and it feels that way in a different place besides your butthole. Resistance is not great to those who have experienced non-resistance. It becomes, we're going to talk about, we're taking it to the ego, to preferences. Where preference is, where there is preference, there is evidence of ego. But we're going to go there anyways. You know it's more preferable to not resist anything. A lot of spirituality used to be taught with a prerequisite that the body is temporary, but you are not temporal. You are forever. And you have to get this belief established, and it's a fact also. It's one of those things, but we're not here to do that, talk about that right now. But a lot of spirituality, and some religions did it too, but a lot of spirituality was based on you had to get that understanding, and you had to believe that you are forever. The body, you're not the body, you're not the mind. You forever, you are that awareness, the observer, the one that's watching what's happening regardless. You're the energy of it. It takes energy to move things, that's why you can move this body at command, will. All you gotta do is stimulate some neurons and some joints and some nerves. All that's based on the same thing that mystical and spiritual beliefs and things of that nature are. All of it is. You associated, some of it's hardwired, but you associated, you know, you want to move this, you don't even have to think about it or talk. You know, when you want to move something, you want to do something, you just start doing it. But I digress. That a lot of spiritual beliefs, you have a prerequisite to spirituality was you have to establish that you're forever. Not that you aren't without the belief, but it's a process to get where you're going. You have to do some things a certain way to get there.
point I'm making with that. You had to believe that you're forever and that the body is temporal and you're not the body. The mind is the same as the body. It's going to share the same fate ultimately as the body. Your mind is. That's debatable, though, with fields of consciousness and the mental plane and whatnot. But one thing's for certain, that you had to get that established. Because if you could accept that on that level, that everything dies, it wouldn't matter how you died. You got the skills and the tools to process and surrender and just okay to whatever comes your way. That's part of the practice. That's part of the practice. So even when something really fucked up happened to you that maybe resulted in the end of your body, the end of its time with you, you still remain. It didn't matter what you did. It don't matter what happened, because you still gonna be here long after the body ain't. So a lot of spirituality used to be based in that. You had to get those core beliefs. That's why you have different types of magic, schools of magic, and different schools of faiths, and different concepts, and different religions, and all the variety, because they all come with some forms of beliefs that you gotta get established in there. I like the idea of freedom and liberty. So I developed tools that allow me to attach and detach, believe and then disbelieve, step into the character in an undeniably real way, and live as that character as if it was you, and the powers that character has will be acquired. And then when you step out of that character, before Kurt was I am, for you were I am, is a magic spell to do this, an incantation. Then when you stepped out of that character, it was a lot like the alchemist distilling. You distilled the powers and abilities of that character into yourself, and the soul lessons are learned. And you have the power, and you don't have to be that character. Now, this is tricky maneuver. It comes naturally to me to do it, but I can see that it might drive someone schizophrenic or insane if they tried to do it. That's why there's prerequisites to some of the hardcore stuff, because you got to prepare the container. You got to prepare the hardware. You got to prepare the mind for the ride you're about to ride. Because if you don't, you don't want to end up in an insane asylum, do you? You don't want to end up in all kinds of places, and some people think God doesn't work fast enough with me. God works as fast as He's aware that you can keep up. If you ask God, Lord, show me these things, teach me, guide me, help me, and be with me through them. If you ask Him, He's going to take care of you. He's going to make sure that nothing bad happens to you as you traverse these kinds of things. You stumble around, you can get yourself in some trouble. Yeah, all kinds of energetic consequences to the things we do, karmas and stuff. You don't want to fuck around energetically and find out. You don't, I promise. You'd be all kinds of things. I can imagine all kinds of bad things happening. However, if you feel called, if the Spirit truly moves you to develop and learn alone, do it. The Spirit moved you. You got to develop that relationship with the Spirit and with God. When you get yourself in a situation and you don't have nowhere else to turn to, you have God. Every one of us is a reflection of God, is a divine spark of God. And I tell you, just as David wrote it in Psalms, We are all gods and children of the Most High, the Divine, the Source. Tell you as Jesus told you, ye are gods. We are gods, you are gods, I'm a god, you're a god, I'm awakened, you're awakened, I got the kundalini, you got the kundalini, I got the spiritual aids, you got the spiritual aids. We that was fucked up. We got, some of us got spiritual rabies, it seems. But I tell you that it is truly a spiritual awakening bargain bin sale right now on this earth. I'll tell you that. Something is coming. Something is always coming. Something is always happening. This place is built on karma. Karma is a word, means action, movement, doing something. It becomes a cycle. You can keep repeating it over and over again. Usually it's done in ignorance. Why am I doing this? We wake up and ask one day. Something big is coming. But something I realized when I read the Bible. First time when I was young in my spiritual journey, when I started taking it seriously, is that what I was reading, I was like, I'm looking at that in my world right now. That was my first introduction to karmic cycles on a mass scale of people. It's all in there, every bit of it. The Bible, not a boring story about desert people. It is not a history book. It is not a book of you can do this and that and this. The Bible was written by their equivalent of sages, by people who understood how to get where they were going. There are mystics throughout time. There are enlightened people. They don't use the term enlightened, or where they didn't. There are awakened people throughout history that realized that they could express this universal truth, the divine love and aspects of the divine, of God, with humanity, but they had to do it in a way that the physical world would allow, and i.e. the constraints imposed, the societal constraints, constructions, and expectations that were imposed. People like to think the world is so bad. There is hardship. There's always been hardship in the physical world. I feel like that's going to change very soon. And believing and having faith, it will be made so. And so, you know, they had to play in like Rumi, like Islamic mystic. He had to play inside of the system presented to him. A lot of saints who had to play inside the rules of the system they were given. If they didn't, we wouldn't. I mean, if they did, if somebody didn't understand that and decide to okay, well, I can work it in this way. I can give the message in this way. It'll still be the message, but it'll be painted a little different. It'll have some different traits to it. Those who got eyes will see it, though, and those who got ears will hear it, and those who got hearts to feel it, they'll feel it.
for my sheep know my voice. And oh, if one was in the wilderness, crying out, how I would put down everything and run to them. Getting better on planet Earth. I know the news sensationalizes a few incidents, but man, we've come a long way from people who just picked up rocks and started throwing them at each other because someone yelled, so-and-so did this. There's still some bad. I'm not telling you to overlook that. What I'm telling you now is to celebrate the good that is. Think about this. I believe that if everyone turned off these screens, if we stopped watching the news, if we quit reading about it, if we quit hearing about it, we probably would never encounter anywhere near any of that in an average person's life. So think about that. You would never know. Or think about what kind of how different that would be in your experience if you just didn't know about certain things happening. Entertainment industry, the media complex, they spend a lot of money on psychologists. For a reason they have to be. Someone's telling them how to control minds. Someone's telling them how minds actually work and how you can captivate an audience and hold them captive. Somebody's doing that. They weren't just stumbling around in the dark. Somebody did, not psychologists. They paying somebody to teach them. You go, so we're going. I think that I've said everything. I don't really have anything else to say right now. Oh yeah. So the great thing, one of the great things about a country like America, out of all these flaws, these damn financial hardships imposed on the majority of masses, God will provide for you how much He does for the birds and the bees and the trees and everything in between, how much more He'll do for you, how much more He'll do for those who do the will of God, who do the good work. The will of God has raised this damn vibration of this place so God can have a damn break for 5 minutes over here having to do things because people can't seem to get that lower self shit under control on this earth. And so the good thing, one of the good things about America, I'd like to say, is that we have the right to say, believe, and think whatever we want to say, think, and believe. That is a great opportunity and privilege on this earth, because while you could have done those things, you probably would have got beheaded, you probably would have gotten beaten, all kinds of things would have happened to you in the past. And one of the good things about that is that has remapped spirituality and the potentials therein. Nobody has to actually run around and play a horse and pony show anymore. Now we can talk about it directly. Great progress can be made when ideas can be discussed openly, when things can be shared amongst each other openly in a non-hostile way. There are going to be people who like to debate and argue. I used to like doing that. I'm finding that slowly but surely I just don't care. I give you a good spiritual practice. Don't argue, jokingly, don't argue with stupid people. That means when you see someone is stupid, don't argue with them. It doesn't make them stupid. I don't really like that one. I have to work on that one. Don't argue. So what if they think something? So what if they say something? Let them. Let me tell you something. Even if it's something negative about you, even if it all out attacks you, keep that vibration high, because that negative shit can't affect you if you on a higher frequency. That's the trick. Practice it. Because just like negative entities can't get at you if they don't exist on that frequency, guess what? Neither can negative ideas about you, neither can negative thoughts about you, neither can what they say. It becomes powerless against you. And be wary though. Be aware. Some people you're going to come across hyperly negative, and they got an understanding of how to chip through that barrier, so you got to get used to that. Well, so what about you? I know you're negative. Everything you're saying is just negative. Why should I let that affect me? You got to work with the elements here to get them to understand it. Oh, right on through. In fact, instead of triggering misery, let's trigger the bliss and the joy in those situations. Let's drink that shit like fine wine. And you might just raise your vibration so high in a legitimate, authentic, and genuine way. What radiates out of your heart is going to be so good and so holy and so righteous and so beautiful and wonderful and so blissful that everyone you come into contact with is going to feel how you feel by default. And then there might not be any enemies to fight if you can do that. Everybody got a little psychic shield around them. Some people can keep hammering. Psychic attacks are like when you're yelling at someone, when you're thinking negative things, all kinds of things can be considered like a form of psychic attack or spiritual warfare. And a lot of people's shield will eventually get chipped away. That's why when that breaks, you got to be done the internal work to just let it flow in and out. And it gets in there, and you start, and you can tell the enemy's in the gate when you start I really don't like what they're saying. Is that true? I can't believe they said that. There you go. Those are signs. Things like that are signs that the enemy is in the gate. And what you do is you gotta stop humoring those thoughts. It really is as simple as you just stop and let them pass. You feel like around your head and everything, you feel your energetic field pulse out and in, expand and contract, expand, contract, and you breathe and you focus on that, and that stuff just gets deleted. To put it simply, it gets deleted. Observe it while it's happening if you want, but don't react to it. Just, this comes and goes. It's like the rain in the sky. It rains and then it passes and there's the sun again. And you get better. You're developing, or you may not know this, but you're developing a skill while you're doing that. You're developing a spiritual tool while you're doing that. And you learn how to use it. And you learn how to use it. A lot of people, like, let me build a strong defense. Okay, whatever gets you through the night. But I believe that the best way is to develop it where you're unfazed, regardless of what comes into contact with you. Regardless of what comes inside, you're unfazed, and you know how to let it go, and you know how to let it flow. A lot of motivation for me was realizing that, I used to fly off the handle at people. I used to do all kinds of things. So you understand that I'm talking from experience here. I'm not just, I read a self-help book and now I'm passing, now I'm teaching Eckhart to you. I love Eckhart. I'm insulting the people who don't actually go get the experience. Not really trying to insult them, making an example out of them. Then I started realizing that, like, I don't have to let them people affect me. There really is a choice. There really is a choice. And that choice is hard to see. And it's kind of what I was talking about in the beginning of the video. It hits on that a little bit. When your flaws, when your weaknesses surface,
They are dragging you around, and they are compelling you and driving you around to adhere to that program that says you react like this. Find that is weakness. Find the strength in the weakness. Find a way to overcome that weakness with the strength therein. Use what you got. Use what's at your disposal. Use what is at your disposal. And use the opportunity to practice compassion and forgiveness. A lot of people on the path to learning and mastering forgiveness, but let me teach you a trick. There is no such thing as a free lunch unless someone gives it to you with grace. But let's use this as an example so we can understand what I'm about to teach you. There is no such thing as a free lunch. And that means when you give something, you get something. And when someone gives you something, they get something. Like give and take. Think of it as give and give, whatever. The right hand gives, the left hand takes. The sun gives, the moon takes. When you give forgiveness, you get something incredibly valuable most people don't realize. You receive and get forgetfulness. And a lot of people want to hold on. You are cursing yourself because the fact is, this place is imperfect. And people are going to fuck up and they're going to make you mad. And until you master it, until you get some ability to use this spiritual tool, it's going to really make you mad when you realize they're unrepentant or they don't even understand they've done something wrong to you and they don't care. And so you can accept that, surrender that is how it is, and let it go, because that's what surrender is. You're an astral projection. People breathe laying down until their body gets heavy, and when they feel their body get heavy, they know they can separate. It's like that. And you surrender to that truth. Gautama Siddhartha, Buddha, said one of the first noble truths here is life is suffering. And life is not suffering as we find out from the Buddha's philosophy. Life is not suffering. And Jesus taught that you don't have to go along with the ideas. You can choose to forgive 70 times 7 times a day. But the Buddha, for a moment, taught that for a reason. Because if you accepted that as how it is, how much easier it would be to surrender onto that as the truth. How much easier it would be just to let everything go. So to reiterate, in a spiritual transformation, in the spiritual journey, you have to do things a certain way to prepare the field for what is to grow. The mind wants to understand logically, but the heart, energetic soul, just wants to flow. As we learn later, it's not actually the mind, it's the ego hijacking that mind. Mind is a screen, and we need to claim it because it is an awesome power. All stars by birthright. This is the body, the Holy Land, so to speak. It belongs to us by birthright because it is ours. God already know you gonna fuck up. Boy, God like that guy on the sideline sometimes watching you, and then he'll say something right before you do something. You gonna fuck up. You gonna fuck up. You fucking up. He already know you gonna do it. He's made accommodations for when you don't do it, for when you do it, and when you do something that God hasn't planned for. I bet He laughs as it glitches, as everything glitches around you, and then it goes back to normal. When he go, now I got to interact with it. I got to interact with that with the damn matrix down there. They done glitched it out. Wow, I'm kind of impressed. First time the glitches happened, I was irritated, but then I just started realizing how funny and amusing it is when they make it glitch. Them sure are my kids breaking shit down there. So if you can acknowledge that this place is imperfect, then you can acknowledge that this place is going to get on your nerves and people are going to do things and there's going to be times when they don't repent and realize they've done something wrong and swear off their ways. You can realize there's expectation in there before you realize that the world's imperfect and people are going to do what they're doing. You can accept that. You can surrender to that. You can stop holding on to 99.9% of what people say I don't like this place for. Because it's not the trees. It's not the flowers. It's not even the animals. It's their interactions they're having that make them suffer. It's their experiences with that. Because think about this. I'm going to tell you something. As an example from my experience here recently, I had really bad hay fever. That's an allergic. You get sick off of pollen, basically. Like, I always had allergies off and on. But this year, I had the allergy flu. It was bad. So, my mind doesn't cut on and think the trees are conspiring against me. Acceptance that, well, trees have pollen. I am allergic to pollen. I surrender that sometimes this is going to happen. Thus, I don't suffer. It passes on by. And if you want to think about it, that experience right there is probably far worse than any experience I've ever had with another human being. And if I can accept what the forest did with its pollen, like it did, people take things personal. Take things personal. Accept that too. If then everything else should be really, really, really easy to deal with. So accept that it's imperfect, surrender to it, and you can master forgiveness. And when you give something, you get something. You give forgiveness, you get forgetfulness. Believe me, that is a miracle. You don't want to hang around somebody, don't hang around. But if you do that, if you choose to do anything from a negative, fear-based place, all negativity can be thought of like it stems from fear. All negative emotions can be seen as if they stem from fear, to make it simple. If you do something from a negative, let's just say negative, if you do something negatively, you're going to create a negative experience in things that are coming. You're practicing negativity after all. You're putting it in your heart. It's emanating outward. Things are going to become negative around you. Experiences, thoughts, all kinds of things, just because it's coming out of you. Because we believe the physical senses tell the whole story. Ancient ones wrote it like the senses lie to you, but they're just not. It's our fault for believing that they're showing us everything there is and revealing to us everything there is, and that's just not true.
So if you give forgiveness, you get forgetfulness. Somebody wants to give you forgiveness, take it and give them the forgetfulness. It's like it's metaphysical, right? It's spiritual. And just do it. Don't spend 10 years of your life. Don't spend a moment of your life. A moment spent is too much. Get your knee-jerk reaction off. Be with your emotions to it. Absolutely. Don't clog them up. Just process it and then give the forgiveness, please. Please don't tote that around. That's negative in itself to tote it around. Because you're always going to have to tote around what they did to you then. You may not be thinking of it like that, but that is what happens. That is what happens. Forgive them. Let them off the hook. Let them off the hook. Receive forgetfulness, and then transmute, and then it'll transmute to knowing. It'll go from knowledge to knowing and wisdom, and you gain wisdom. And then you can look from a neutral place. Place of love's even better, more positive place, better result. You can choose to detach, stop associating with that person. You can move on without knowing you did it with resentment or anger or hatred or negativity. You don't have to keep associating with them, but forgive them so you can forget them if you have to. Sometimes people make genuine mistakes in life, or considering, I'm gonna forgive them, and I'm just gonna, for a little while, I'm gonna just see what their behavior's like and see if this is someone that I want to continue to associate myself with and be friends with or whatever. Okay? But don't do it from a place of detestment. Don't do it from a place of negativity. That is like a seed, man. Annoyance, things like annoyance seem so minor. They're seeds, and they sprout into trees of resentment and frustrations and angers, and they produce a fruit that has the seeds of that inside of it, and then it falls on the ground and eats it and nourishes itself with that kind of negativity, with like hate energy. And then the seeds remain and they sprout up, and pretty soon you've got a forest of darkness. You've got a forest of suffering and a forest of ignorance. The ignorance is the fact that it wasn't aware or apparent to us what was happening when we were like that way, and it was unchecked, and it wasn't taken to be with and observed. The whole forest sprung up of suffering, and that produces illusions. The illusions are like our negative thoughts, and it set fire to that forest of illusions so that we can be free, and we can be liberated. Because things like annoyance and things like minor irritations, those are the seeds. And your body is where they're planted, and then up springs the trees of those things, and it produces the fruit of resentment, despair, hatred, extreme anger. And those things lead to what they lead to, negative things, wickedness, things of that nature, negativity at the least to say. And then they drop on the ground and they eat the fallen leaves that contain all that energy. They eat the fruit that contain that, and they nourish themselves with that hate energy, and they keep growing on it. And the seeds remain, and they sprout up that forest. And we have got to do the spiritual practice to realize how to deal with those things. And I say that because even though forgiveness doesn't sound appealing, it stops that forest from ever growing inside of us. You give forgiveness, you get forgetfulness, and that is a blessing and a miracle. And you use that wisdom and that knowing and that intellect you got to decide you don't want to keep associating with that environment or not. Okay? Don't hold grudges. Don't be resentful. Because fighting the good fight, fighting that spiritual warfare, is about doing the good work. And the good work is about taking care of this holy land, this field that is our body, and not succumbing to darkness. And this will contribute to raising the frequency up of everyone and everything, including you. And it's always a lot happier and better and more pleasant experience. When we don't suffer, we can say that at the least. So we'd want to do everything we can to not make ourselves suffer and endure that. And yeah. And so I think I've made pretty good points today. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. And I hope everything goes your way. You can make it so if it ain't, because it all starts inside. Just one more thing, I know there is. You can pray all day long for heaven to come to earth. You can pray to go to heaven all day long, but I tell you this. We all know the idea of paradise and heaven. We all have a rough idea of it at least. If it ain't in your heart, it will never be in your midst. It will never be with you. If we don't have it in our heart, it will never be with us and amongst us or in us. So, do the inner work, do the good work, fight the good fight. It's as easy as smiling and doing something about those thoughts that cross your mind. Have a good day. Hope everything goes your way.